Sanam, how seriously can we take Donald Trump's comments? I mean, he says a lot of things. He also said he wants to take over Greenland, Canada, the Panama Canal. But if he, in fact, is serious, can he do this?
So I think, first of all, it's interesting because he came in with a message of we want peace and, trying to sort of withdraw American presence around the world. From a very practical standpoint, if they wanted to take over the Gaza Strip, this would implicitly mean American boots on the ground in the Middle East again, in Gaza. That is going to imply, one way or another, violence against Americans there. They're going to be put at risk if they're on the ground. And sadly, it's not surprising if one imagines that if America becomes directly embroiled in the occupation of Palestine, that they also become direct targets of anyone who's resisting it. So in terms of peace and security that President Trump wanted to, the platform of peace and security that they came with, this is an own goal, which is pretty devastating. Secondly, I would say that given that China is now representing justice in the world, or I'm sure the Russians are going to come out in a minute and say something as well. He has unified the Arab world together, and it's really putting America last. So if it was meant to be America first, with this kind of comment, he's going down the path of America last, and we just have to wonder really what's behind it, because he's very good at causing noise and distraction. But you've got to think, what are they actually doing behind the scenes? Yeah,
that's, I think a lot of people are asking the same thing, and problematic on so many levels, whether he means it or not, destabilizing for the entire region. But we're also hearing this will be a violation of international law, which is a huge problem by itself.
Look, the violation of international law is obvious. The tragedy, again, is that our previous president, Mr. Biden, breached all sorts of international laws by supporting and enabling Israel's, genocidal violence in Gaza, despite, the ICJ, the ICC rulings, and so forth. So the Americans have dug themselves into this hole already, and Trump is jumping in. He could go the other direction, right? He could be the guy who comes in and says, you know what, to resolve this problem once and for all, we need to enable the creation of the Palestinian state. We need Palestinians to come together around their table as civilians and their political actors and their militants to say, what do they want? What's the future they want? Israelis to come together around their own tables with their own people and imagine the future. Imagine the nightmare of the future. Imagine the positive vision of the future, and try and reach some compromise, because at the end of the day, they're going to have to live together, I think, as neighbors in one way or another. So he could be that voice. Instead, at the moment, he's causing this absolute chaos and genuinely doing damage to the American reputation, and of course, trying to undermine international law, which he doesn't believe in anyway.
You mentioned Palestinian state and the creation of an independent Palestinian state, which is something never once during that news conference we heard anything about, neither from Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu or President Donald Trump. But who did bring it up is Saudi Arabia. They were very quick to respond. They rejected Trump's bombshell, rejecting any attempts to displace Palestinians. Again, repeating, Saudi Arabia would not establish diplomatic ties with Israel in the absence of an independent Palestinian state. Could Saudi Arabia here be the game changer?
I think Saudi Arabia has a huge role to play, because we also know that Mr. Trump has business interests with Saudi Arabia, and he wants to make sure that he has his relationships with them. But even if you take the scenario of, let's say they take over Gaza, we know already that Israel is bombing the West Bank, and they blockaded Bethlehem and other places. Let's say that this vision that he has comes to fruition, right? What kind of a region and neighborhood is Israel going to be in when you have hostility that is renewed? It's not ancient hostility. It's really it's the new generation that's going to be hostile, and there's no solution going forward. So, is that what kind of a state is Israel going to be? Yeah. And that's part of this dilemma, that if they go down this path of absolute, black and white, Israel has to get everything and Palestinians have to disappear. Frankly, Israel itself has also destroyed itself, because Israel was claiming to be a democratic state in the Middle East. For sure, that is going to be it's going to be the end of Israel as we know it as well.
How much of a problem is this for Egypt and Jordan? They are huge recipients of aid from the United States. They're in a bit of a pickle here because while they've said this is not going to happen and it's not the right move, does that perhaps give Donald Trump leverage here?
It either gives him leverage or it gives them leverage, frankly. I mean, this could be the moment where the Arab world comes together and once and for all puts the interests of its region before the interests of the Americans. And maybe the Qataris and the Saudis and the other states in the region that have the resources can be constructive actors in terms of enabling and supporting Jordan and Egypt at the moment. So, you know, for Jordan and Egypt also, it's very difficult because if they become complicit in the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians into their own states, they also become international pariahs. They've also broken laws, and they can be charged with effectively war crimes or crimes against humanity. That's one aspect of it. Secondly, look at the challenges that Egypt is already facing. It's got Sudan on its border and hundreds of thousands of Sudanese that are war affected already trying to make a life in Egypt. They're both housing and supporting Syrians, Yemenis, Palestinians from before. These countries are busting at the seams. So they, you know, for their own survival also, they should not be doing this. And so again, it comes back to the region. Is the region willing to stand together with Palestine and with the states that are experiencing this particular level of pressure and you know, make it the last stand of the Americans? Maybe that's what Mr. Trump is actually aiming for. You know, we just don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Well, you certainly bring up some important points there. Sanam Naraghi Anderlini joining us from London. Thank you very much.